In a quest to develop sports in the Gambia, a new sports levy on telecommunications sector has been introduced. Russia expressed concern at the escalating tensions over Iran despite the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stating that his country did not want war. Malawi President Peter Mutharika has dissolved his cabinet ahead of presidential and parliamentary elections next week. These are the headlines. More coming on your way on the world today on iAfrica TV. Hello viewers, you're watching the World Today News Bulletin. We now kick off with our first story. In their efforts to put to bed the long-standing sports financial trouble in the country, the government of the Gambia, through the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, has introduced a new levy for sports development on the telecommunications sector in the Gambia. According to a press release from Pura, the levy is charged as follows: 2 cents per minute on all international incoming calls into the country, 50 bututs per minute on all local calls, or charge a levy of 1% airtime purchase. The new levy will come into effect on 10th June 2019. Sudan's pro-democracy protesters said on Thursday the ruling military council's suspension of talks was a regrettable setback to efforts to forge a new democratic era following the overthrow of longtime leader Omar al-Bashir. The transitional military council and protest leaders had been expected to come to an agreement on yesterday over the makeup of a new body to govern Sudan for 3 years. But in the early hours of Thursday, the chief of Sudan's ruling military council, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, announced the talks had been suspended for 72 hours as the security in the capital had worsened. More in this report.
Sudan's ruling Transitional Military Council said yesterday it is suspending talks with the opposition alliance for 3 days on the transition to civilian rule. Addressing the nation on state TV last night, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan attributed the decision to creating a conducive atmosphere for the talks after scores of people were killed and injured in clashes between protesters and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, a faction of the army. We decided to suspend negotiations with the Alliance for Freedom and Change for 72 hours to prepare a better atmosphere for completing the talks and decided to dismantle the barricades outside the old area of the sit-in square, and we won't allow any more extensions of the barricades, he stressed. The Sudanese Professional Association, which is part of the opposition alliance, has also called on the protesters to withdraw from the extended sit-in area. Widespread confrontations have erupted in the past 2 days between the RSF and protesters who attempted to expand the area of the sit-in, closing many main roads in the capital, Khartoum. Meanwhile, the Central Committee of the Sudanese doctors said in a statement that 9 people were injured in Wednesday's attack on the protesters. On Monday night, 8 people were killed as unidentified forces attacked protesters around the sit-in square.
Gambia Tourism Minister Hamad Bah has criticized the unnecessary security checks and fraudulent activities happening at the country's only airport. Bah said even Gambians coming home to get harassed rather by officials at the Banjul International Airport. A lot of administrative adjustments has to be made at the airport. There is immigration, customs, security, and everybody wants to do their quota on the other side. It needs to be dealt with, said Bah. Honorable Bah made this assertion at his first meet with the press in 2019 at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute to update the public on the progress report of his ministry. Sajid Sambu has more.
Updating the general public with a significant achievement by tourism on the year under review, in a press briefing held recently at the Gambia Hospitality Institution, Tourism Minister Ahmad N.K. Bah describes Banjul International Airport as one of the most frustrating tourist entry points in the Gambia. Minister Bah made these remarks during his ministry annual report presentation to the public through the media, announcing the average tourists received in the year 2018-2019 tourism season. Honorable Bah said when the new government came to place, his ministry was able to increase the number of flights landing at the Banjul International Airport with over 50 flights landing a week in the first quarter of the season, but was never happy as stories of Gambians coming have been constantly harassed by security personnel at the airport.
And then, of course, for the number of flights at the airport, I must tell you that one of the most frustrating institutions that we have is our airport. As a government official, I'm saying, I am not hiding my feeling about it. And I've said it openly. I have a right to say my opinion, even though I'm a minister. Am I right? Yes. I'll say my opinion. This airport, when you get there, you see how Gambians suffer when they come to this airport. We've met repeatedly, we've talked about it. It's difficult for people to understand that it's the first point of entry, the last point of departure. The impression of the person entering your country and the impression of the person leaving your country. It is important. A lot of work needs to be done in that airport.
Minister Ba further recalled receiving the former British Foreign Secretary of State Prince Johnson on his visit to the Gambia sometime in 2017 that he was apprehended by the Chief Security of Prince, claiming he was asked to pay £100 before having his passport stamped by the Gambian security.
Then this Chief of Security, it's one of the security staff was next to him. He said, but you have a problem with Minister. I said, what's the problem? He said, you were airport. I said, what's the problem? I know there is a problem, but I mean, we're foreigners. There is a problem. He said to me that, you know, I met one of your security people, he didn't know that I'm a security. He asked me for $100. If not, he will not stamp my passport or will not do it. And then he was harassing me for $100. £100 rather. I looked at him, I tried to talk to him, he wouldn't understand. When I moved my card and saw him, the guy just disappeared. I said, you look at your airport, Mr. Minister, something is wrong. This is a guy who sits with the British Foreign Secretary who make decisions about our country. Having that impression.
Tourism Minister urges the population to put Gambia ahead of personal interests, as the sons of the land are charged for bringing mobile phones for their family members without receipts.
We need to really think more nationalistic, as I said again. When the Gambian come with 3 mobiles, 4, we know that we have an extended family system. When you are coming, you want to give your family, everybody a friend, they will ask you, you cannot get this, pay. Do you get a receipt for it? The answer is no. Gambia has been proud coming to your country. Coming to your own country, wanting to be happy in your own country. Your first point of entry, you are harassed about few mobiles you have for gift, for friends and loved ones.
Honorable Ba challenged the media to investigate and report on matters affecting the society and not only going after government officials.
And that's why the press also, you have to be doing your job. Don't go after Ahmad Ba alone. No, it's not fair. Why don't you go and see this and report them? Some of them have stories with tapes, recording, they have it. I saw one guy, he recorded somebody, recorded everything that's transparent. You know, I mean, the press also needs to go after all the vices in the society, not only going after public officials.
Putting more emphasis on the claims made by the minister, government spokesperson Ibrahim Sankare describes the sad incident as embarrassing, that he wonders if the charges placed on mobile phones by airport security were lawful.
The situation at the airport is particularly disturbing. I just happened to go from the airport last Sunday with the director of immigration. I saw the same picture that the Honorable Minister actually highlighted. I don't still understand why Gambians will have to pay for their mobile phones, while they have to be taxed on their mobile phones. I don't know how that came to be law, whether it's a law, or whether it's a norm, or a custom. It's disturbing, deeply disturbing. It is culture of corruption too. It is a very sad malaise that a country as poor as ours, the people who go out of this country and try to come back are actually taxed beyond the regulations stipulated by government.
Meanwhile, we are yet to get to any airport officials to clarify on the matter or to shed more light on the claims made by both the minister and the government spokesperson. Sajo Sambo for Africa TV News.
Russia is concerned with the escalation of tensions over the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action known as the Iran nuclear deal and blames the United States and its action for this. Moscow noted that Iran's decision to end some commitments under the agreement is simply a response to Washington's policy of maximum pressure. More in this report.
Russia expressed concern at the escalating tensions over Iran, despite the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stating that his country did not want war. Talking to reporters, Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov quietly held the U.S. responsible for stoking tensions by withdrawing from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Actions. We clearly understand that Iran is not taking these decisions proactively, but responding to the pressure contrary to the letter and spirit of the JCPOA, he said. Peskov added that Pompeo did not give any assurance regarding Iran at the meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Pompeo, speaking at a news conference following the meeting in Sochi, said the U.S. will continue to apply pressure on Iran. He said the U.S. does not want war with Iran but will respond in an appropriate manner if its interests are attacked.
Malawi President Peter Mutharika has dissolved his cabinet ahead of presidential and parliamentary elections next week. A statement by Chief Secretary to Government, Lord Muhara, said the cabinet had been dissolved and the president would assume all ministerial duties. This is in line with the country's constitution that requires the cabinet to be disbanded ahead of the polls. Incumbent President Peter Mutharika is facing competition from 6 other candidates, including 2 of his own ministers. Vice President Saulos Chilima is vying on a United Transformation Movement ticket, while immediate former Health Minister Atupele Muluzi is the flag bearer of the United Democratic Front Party. More in this report. Malawi President Peter Mutharika dissolved the country's 20-member cabinet yesterday ahead of May 22nd elections. A statement by Chief Secretary to Government, Lloyd Muhara, said until the appointment of a new cabinet, all ministerial powers, functions and responsibilities will be exercised by Mutharika. All queries or matters should be directed to the Office of the President and Cabinet, Muhara said. The dissolution is in line with the Constitution, which mandates the President to dissolve the Cabinet at any time of his choosing, including during elections, a political analyst at the University of Malawi, Mustaf Hussein, told Anadolu Agency. It is expected that the Cabinet be dissolved at this time as we head to the polls to avoid ministers using state resources for campaigning, he said. Mutharika is facing opposition from 2 of his ministers, but his main rival is from former church pastor and opposition Malawi Congress leader Lazarus Chakwera. Mutharika defeated then incumbent president and Africa's second woman leader Joyce Banda in 2014. Banda has pulled out of the presidential race and is supporting Chakwera. Malawians head to the polls to elect 193 members of parliament, 462 local government councillors and the president. According to Malawi's Electoral Commission, 6.5 million people have registered to vote in a country of nearly 20 million. Coming up after the break, United Nations has strongly condemned the attack on a Catholic church in central Burkina Faso that left 6 dead. Welcome back. We remind you that you are watching the World Today Afternoon Bulletin. Let's now take a look at the remaining stories. The German army has suspended its training operation in Iraq as regional tension grows, the Defense Ministry said. There was generally heightened alert awareness of soldiers currently operating in the region, he added, but said training could be resumed within a few days as there was no concrete threat at the moment. Germany has some 60 soldiers stationed north of Baghdad to train Iraq's security forces, as well as 100 more troops in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. Germany's decision to call a halt to the training missions follow steps from Washington to put U.S. troops on high alert and remove some diplomatic staff. More in this report.
Germany has suspended its military training mission in Iraq due to growing tensions between the US and Iran. Speaking at a press conference in Berlin, Defense Ministry spokesman Jens Flusdorf said the German armed forces has temporarily stopped its military training activities in Erbil and Camp Taji in Baghdad's north due to a tense security situation throughout Iraq. Flusdorf said the decision was taken following consultations with other allies and partners in the anti-Daesh coalition. The US on Wednesday ordered the departure of non-emergency employees from Iraq amid heightened tensions between Washington and Tehran. Germany has been an active partner of the international coalition against Daesh terror groups since 2015 and has deployed nearly 150 troops in the northern Iraqi city of Erbil to train local forces there. Currently, 100 German troops are stationed in Erbil, while 60 others are deployed in Baghdad to train the Iraqi army personnel.
The African Union Commission commended Sudan for agreeing on a transitional roadmap with reasonable timing. Sudan's Transitional Military Council and the Opposition Alliance earlier Wednesday agreed to consummate the process of reinstating civilian rule within 3 years. And all political actors would be brought on board to map out an inclusive transition in 6 months. More in this report. The African Union Commission commended Sudan for agreeing on a transitional roadmap with reasonable timing. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, wishes to commend the Sudanese stakeholders for the progress being made towards reaching an agreement for a political transition in Sudan, the group said in a statement. Sudan's Transitional Military Council and the Opposition Alliance earlier Wednesday agreed to consummate the process of reinstating civilian rule within 3 years. And all political actors would be brought on board to map out an inclusive transition in 6 months. The country has been run by the military council since President Omar al-Bashir was overthrown early last month, in part due to popular protests that continue with demonstrators demanding total civilian rule. Mohammed congratulated national stakeholders for their high level of responsibility to complete the negotiation cycle in a reasonable time in order to adequately address the legitimate concerns of the Sudanese people. He also commended the collaboration of the United Nations, the European Union, and the Troika of the US, Norway, and the UK in supporting the AU's approach to help Sudan achieve a Sudanese-led and owned political transition for the betterment of the country and the region. Mohammed's principal strategic advisor, Professor Mohammed El Hassan Lebat, is currently in Khartoum to oversee the Commission's technical support to the political transition process in Sudan. The United Nations is committed in highlighting the Pacific region's concern and other small island states' adaptation, resilience, finance, and early warning during the Climate Action Summit in New York in September. This is the assurance from UN Secretary General to Pacific leaders at the Pacific Islands Forum yesterday. Visiting Fiji for the first time as Secretary General, Antonio Guterres outlined 2 fundamental challenges facing leaders attending the Pacific Islands Forum on, namely climate change and the world rising ozone, which threatens to submerge low-lying nations. Here is an insert.
And I'm delighted to be visiting the Pacific region for the first time as Secretary General. I was yesterday in Christchurch to express my solidarity following the horrific attacks on mosques in March. In response to that tragedy, the voices of the Pacific were commendably strong about the importance of tackling intolerance and religious discrimination. And as the Pacific Islands Forum shows, diversity rooted in very strong cultures and traditions is a strength, not a weakness. The United Nations and the Pacific Island Forum are close partners across the international agenda as we support your peace-building efforts, your implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and so much else, fully aware of the enormous challenges represented by scale, isolation, and the scarcity of resources. But today, I'm here to focus on 2 fundamental challenges for your region and for our world. First, the increasingly severe impacts of climate change, and second, the deepening threats to the world's oceans and seas. Excellencies, as you know all too well, the Pacific region is on the front line of climate change. That means you are also our important allies in the fight against it. In the days ahead, I will also visit Tuvalu and Vanuatu. And I'm here to see the region's climate pressures firsthand and to learn about the work being undertaken by communities here in Fiji and elsewhere to bolster resilience.
Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on the World Today News Bulletin. For more on this and other stories, log on to our website, iafrica.tv. I'm Alhassan Sise. Bye for now.